This is the story of Rebecca, a woman who once believed that patience, respect, and compromise were enough to keep a marriage strong. She lived with her husband Daniel in what she thought was a normal household, but from the very beginning, there was one person who truly controlled everything: Daniel's mother, Margaret. Margaret had a habit of interfering in every decision, no matter how small. From how Rebecca cooked, to how she organized the house, and even how she spoke, Margaret always had something to criticize. Daniel, instead of protecting his wife, chose silence. He believed that avoiding conflict was the same as keeping peace, but that silence slowly turned Rebecca into a stranger in her own home. One night, everything changed. Without informing Rebecca or asking for permission, Margaret suddenly arrived with a large group of relatives from out of state. The house was instantly filled with noise, chaos, and unfamiliar faces. Rebecca was shocked, but she tried to stay calm, assuming that guests would stay in the living room or leave the next day. But Margaret had other plans. With a commanding tone, she told Rebecca that the guests would be staying in Rebecca's bedroom, and that Rebecca should move out immediately. For Margaret, this was not a request, it was an order. In that moment, something inside Rebecca snapped. For the first time, she said no. Margaret was furious. She raised her voice and accused Rebecca of being disrespectful and selfish. When Rebecca stood her ground, Margaret decided to reveal the truth. The bedroom wasn't meant for guests at all. It was being used to hide Daniel's brother, a man with a criminal past, who was secretly living there with his girlfriend to avoid the police. The revelation stunned Rebecca. What she thought was her private, safe space had been taken away from her without consent. The argument escalated, relatives began shouting, and the house turned into a war zone. Through all of this, Daniel stood quietly beside his mother, refusing to defend his wife. That night marked the beginning of the end. Emotionally exhausted and deeply hurt, Rebecca packed a small bag and left the house. She went to stay with her own mother, where she finally felt safe enough to breathe. For the first time in years, she questioned her marriage and realized how invisible she had become. After some time, Rebecca returned, hoping things might change. She tried to set clear boundaries and asked Daniel to support her as a husband should. But nothing changed. Daniel continued to obey his mother, avoiding responsibility and expecting Rebecca to keep sacrificing her comfort for the sake of family peace. The final blow came when Daniel's brother was arrested again. Daniel approached Rebecca with a serious face and told her that they needed to take out a loan to help his brother. Rebecca listened quietly, then refused. She was done paying the price for problems that were never hers. In that moment, she finally understood the truth. The real issue was not just Margaret's control, but Daniel's weakness. Rebecca chose herself. She filed for divorce, took what was legally hers, and walked away from a marriage that had drained her emotionally. With time, she bought a small home of her own, not grand, not luxurious, but peaceful, a place where no one shouted, controlled, or humiliated her. Rebecca rebuilt her life step by step. She found strength in independence and learned that love without respect is not love at all. Leaving that toxic household was not a failure. It was her greatest victory.